Even in the dread dark of the ocean floor, it didn't take long for the scavengers to find the body. A cast of crabs arrived first, then a risk of lobsters. The shrimp showed up too. First, they nibbled at the softer parts, the eyeballs and the split lip, but soon they unzipped the skin and opened up the body for the smaller creatures to feast. In less than 3 weeks, the body was stripped to the bone. And now, an ivory skeleton's empty orbs stare up at the ocean's rippling surface, forever fading away into the cold, dark floor. Curtis. She wasn't like the other girls. I watched her as she smiled at customers, brought plates of food, wiped down tables with the damp cloth that smelt of bleach she kept in a little plastic bag in the pocket of her apron, which was a navy blue, and made her eyes look like stars on velvet. I used to only go out for breakfast once a month. That's my budget. At Croissant & Co., I'm allowed to order 1 small juice and a breakfast special. It comes with a free coffee. But when Monica started waitressing there, I began making excuses to visit the restaurant more often. I was in the neighborhood, I would tell her, which, strictly speaking, was true. I lived 3 blocks away from where she worked. When she spoke quietly to me, the faintest blush on her cheeks, I'd feel so energized. I started to get the idea that I could be anything, do anything with her and God by my side. The other girls wore vulgar short skirts and painted their lips with brash colors, but Monica had true beauty. She didn't need to show off or pretend. The thing that struck me when I first met her was the streak of vulnerability that lies under her skin like a silver vein. She was just so beautiful and open and tender. I instantly wanted to take her under my wing, hold her, protect her, love her like she's never been loved before. "Can I get you another coffee?" she said, a ribbon of hair falling over her eye. She smiled apologetically and quickly clipped it back in place. A second coffee wasn't in my budget, but how could I have refused? I threw caution to the wind. "Yes, please." It's not like I don't have the money. I have plenty of money. I just like to be careful with it. When Monica brought my coffee, black, with hot milk, just the way I like it, my breath caught in my throat and I had to fight the urge to cough. It was a moment I'd been thinking about for weeks, months. My bathroom mirror was already sick of hearing the speech. "I was wondering," I said, trying to keep my voice even. I cleared my throat. "Monica?" Monica gave me one of her most generous smiles, and that gave me the courage to continue. "I was wondering if you'd like to grab a drink sometime." Her smile faltered, and there was confusion in her eyes. My heart shriveled right then. My face tingled with shame. Oh, what had I been thinking? Of course this magnificent woman was too good for me. I started rambling. "I completely understand if you'd rather not." "I'd love to," she said, and relief coursed through my veins. We exchanged numbers, and I floated out of the restaurant. Magnificent Monica. I was on cloud 9 for the rest of the day. Monica. Our first date was beyond incredible. Curtis took me for a drink at that swanky bar in Clifton that overlooks the sea. I ordered a candy floss G&T, and it was amazing. Then we went to sit on the beach, and I felt intoxicated by the drink and the fizzing ocean, and the fact that I was sitting next to Curtis Brennan. Curtis Brennan. When I started working at Croissant, and he came in for his breakfast, the other girls would giggle. They told me who he was, said they'd sell their souls for a date with him. He was perfect, sweet, rich, and good-looking. We dreamed of him being our ticket out of our ordinary drab lives in the restaurant, scraping leftover food off plates and cleaning up other people's broken glass. We fantasized about sunning ourselves on his shiny white yacht in the middle of the bright blue sea. And then I was sitting right next to him, and we were talking, really talking. And it was all so surreal and real at the same time that my head was spinning. The sand was warm, the sun began to melt into the sea, and the dusk painted his face orange and pink. His hair looked dark, his eyes full of light, and in that moment it was like my life changed forever. We both knew it was the beginning of something important. And I knew I'd never forget that day. Curtis. Monica is perfect. Just perfect. Things are going exactly according to plan. On Friday nights, I pick her up after her lunch shift and we go out. I take her anywhere she wants to go and let her order whatever she's in the mood for. It's tearing a hole in my budget, but I just tell myself that our courtship won't always be that expensive. It's an investment in our future. We talk for hours, sometimes late into the night. Usually, I make sure I get at least 7.5 hours of sleep, but when I'm with Monica, I get to bed really late and then still toss and turn thinking of her. Sometimes I don't even read my Bible anymore. I just lie there, picturing her flawless face, her exquisite body. Not that I've ever seen her body, not naked anyway. I make sure that I'm the perfect gentleman. She deserves no less. I wake up exhausted, but energized. I know that sounds nonsensical, but it's true. It's like my brain is tired, but my heart is on fire. There is new hope and purpose in every day. Monica. Curtis and I are officially a couple. When he picks me up from work, the other girls giggle and wave, and Mick, our manager, tells us to have fun, kids, even though I think he might be younger than Curtis. Curtis doesn't like Mick, says he knows restaurant managers, and they're usually less than respectful to their staff. I don't know about that. Mick's always been very kind to me. Curtis says he doesn't like the way Mick looks at me. I honestly can't tell. He looks at me just like all the other men do, just like Curtis does. Curtis wants me to stop waitressing at Croissant, says that I deserve better than that, but I need the money. Tuition fees for my final year at UCT will be due in January, and I don't even have half of the money I need for that. I need to keep working. Curtis. Am I wrong about Monica? I thought she was different. I thought she was pure. And then I found her in a clinch with that god-awful man at the restaurant and my head exploded. I was so angry that I couldn't think straight. Angry that it happened, angry about what it could mean, and furious that they'd made me lose control like that. Monica. Oh, my God. Sitting in casualty with Curtis because he has a fractured hand. He came to pick me up early from Croissant & Co., and I was in the back room with Mick. I was asking him if I could double up on some of my shifts, and he ummed and ahed and looked at the schedule. Said there wasn't really much more available. And then I told him what the money was for, and his eyes softened and said, "Sure, we can squeeze a few more shifts in." I was so happy I hugged him, and it felt really nice. And that's when Curtis came flying in, and he punched Mick so hard that he broke his hand. I was completely in shock. I honestly couldn't believe what had just happened. Then Curtis grabbed me and shoved me out of the back room, out of the restaurant, while Mick was holding a restaurant napkin to his bleeding face and shouting about calling the police. I had to drive Curtis to the hospital, and it made him even more angry that he couldn't do it himself. He hasn't spoken to me since. I keep telling him what really happened between Mick and I. Nothing. But I can see he doesn't believe me. I don't blame him for thinking that. I mean, it must have looked pretty suspect when he came in and saw us hugging like that. All the girls in the restaurant pretend to flirt with Mick. We bat our eyelashes at him and blow kisses. Not often, but it does happen. It's just a joke, a silly game to make the time pass, to make sure we don't die of boredom in between filling coffees and bringing bills. The hug was totally innocent, but now I feel ashamed. I shouldn't have hugged him, and I definitely shouldn't have enjoyed it. Curtis. My hand is healing nicely. Luckily, my medical aid paid the hospital bills, which made it easier for me to forgive Monica. It all turned out rather well, because now Monica no longer works at Croissant. Now she doesn't have to serve people and clean up their mess, or hang around that terrible gaggle of half-wits she used to call her friends. Mick pretended to be a good guy about the whole thing, said he wouldn't press charges if I never went back there. He said Monica was welcome to work there again if she gave me the boot. But of course that wasn't an option. My love chose me. Can you believe that? She chose me. Monica. I had decided, sitting there in casualty, that I'd break up with Curtis. The whole thing just made me feel so sick to my stomach. I was so sad and so nervous. I felt like my emotions were all clawing up my throat, and it made it very difficult to speak. I didn't want to end things. I mean, I'm falling in love with him. But how can I love a man who loses his temper like that? That was crazy. And not just any crazy, batshit crazy. And then he didn't speak to me for ages afterwards, and I just felt my heart harden against him. He's not the man I thought he was. Or rather, he's not the man he was pretending to be. Also, breaking up with Curtis is the only way I'll get my job back, and God knows I need the money. As it is, I'm a week late on my rent, and the agent called saying I'm in breach of contract. They'll chuck out my stuff and change the locks at the end of the month if I don't come up with the cash ASAP. But then yesterday, Curtis arrived at my flat while I was ironing my croissant apron. I had to hand wash it to get rid of the blood, and I was thinking maybe I shouldn't let him in. But there he stood, with this gigantic bunch of flowers, and a look of outright contrition on his face, and my resolve melted. I mean, no one is perfect, right? And it's not like I was completely innocent. He's never hit someone before. He doesn't know what came over him, he said. He just saw Mick and I hugging and thought the worst, thought that Mick was taking advantage of me, and he just saw red. And the next thing his fist was flying towards Mick's face. It's because he's so much in love with me, he said, which made me happy, but sad. Because I was planning on telling him that I loved him before what happened in the back room, and I was hoping he would say it back. Maybe while we were looking at the moon or sitting on the beach again. I don't know. Doing something romantic. He could see I was still wary, so he was extra nice to me, took the iron away and held my hand, and asked how everything was. And then, I don't know why, I guess it was his kindness or sympathy or something, but I just started crying. I had been so upset about the incident and so stressed about not having a job anymore, but I had been holding it all in, trying to be strong. But Curtis's eyes, his beautiful light-filled eyes that I know so well, looked deep into mine, and I just crumbled. He kissed the tears off my cheeks and held me so tightly, telling me everything was going to be okay, that he would take care of everything. And he meant everything. Curtis offered to pay the rent I was behind on, and then to pay for a moving company. I was like, a moving company? And then it dawned on me. Curtis was asking me to move in with him. It makes sense, he said. I would no longer have to pay rent or wait on people. I would live at his place and concentrate on my studies. He'd even pay for my varsity tuition for next year. I couldn't believe it. I was so grateful I started crying again. And he picked me up and carried me to bed. I was so relieved, but I also had a small nagging thought that wouldn't go away. The flowers, the apology, the promise that it will never happen again. I've heard that all before, right? In women's magazines and American soap operas. I know how those stories end. But Curtis isn't like that. I've never felt safer than that moment, as he carried me in his strong arms. I knew that he would do anything to protect me. Curtis lay down with me on my bed, both of us fully clothed, and cuddled me until I stopped crying. When I woke up, he was gone. Curtis. I was hoping it wouldn't come to this, but I need to force her hand. I was watching Monica talk to some students on the campus, and I couldn't stand the way she was acting. She was laughing and smiling, her brightest smile, and swinging her hips like the town tramp. She was going to wear a skirt, but I told her she looked better in jeans. I'm glad she took my advice. She was so cheerful that morning before the orientation class, irritatingly so, and she had hugged me so hard and thanked me again for paying for her university fees. I like that, having that power over her. But then, when I saw her with the other men, I knew it wasn't going to work. No, that wasn't going to work at all. Monica. I'm going to get married. I know, I'm a little young. Dad's going to flip his lid, but maybe when he meets Curtis, he'll see how lucky I am. We're going to court next month, and his priest will attend. Curtis doesn't want a big wedding. He doesn't like parties. He says that weddings are just a grandiose way to waste money. And I'm a little sad about that, to be honest. I mean, I'd love to have a big wedding. But Curtis is right when he says that we don't need anything but each other. It's what true love is about. I'm going to buy a beautiful white dress, though. I don't care what he says. Marriage is, after all, about negotiation, right? Give and take. He gets his way with the wedding, and I get the dress. My friends are all super jealous, say I've hit the jackpot. But Curtis says the opposite is true, that he's the one who scooped the first prize. I wonder if his friends feel the same. Funny thing is, he doesn't seem to have many friends, just business contacts and customers. I've never really thought about that before. I would say that my friends would become his friends, but I think they're a little immature for him. Whenever I drag him along to some art gallery or something, he doesn't talk much, and his eyes grow cold. Like, why would a successful businessman want to hang around a bunch of liberal students who wear too much eyeliner and drink box wine? In the meantime, I'm practicing. I try to keep the house clean and do the washing. I'm quite enjoying it, actually. But I expect the novelty will wear off soon. Curtis likes me to do the grocery shopping and cook dinner now that I'm not working anymore and he's basically paying for everything. The cooking part isn't working out because even though I warned him that I'm not good in the kitchen, he gets really annoyed when I burn the food. Says the takeaways we eat are making me fat. I guess it's just something we'll have to iron out after the wedding. I'm super nervy, excited about our wedding night. Can you believe we've never had sex in this day and age? But Curtis insists. He wants to be the perfect gentleman. Every now and then, I try to tempt him. Try to unbutton his shirt while we're watching Netflix, or surprise him by not wearing panties under my dress at dinner at one of those fancy restaurants he used to take me to. But he just keeps quiet and shakes his head. He's so old-fashioned like that, but it's cool in a way, you know? Curtis. Today is the happiest day of my life. I am so blessed. I married Monica. She was so glowing and so beautiful in her white dress. I can't believe she belongs to me. When I slipped the wedding ring on her finger, I felt like the luckiest man in the world. Her family is impressed that we're going sailing for our honeymoon. It'll be Monica's first trip on my yacht. I can't wait to show her the ropes. Monica. When we were in court and it was time to exchange rings, my ring stuck a little over my knuckle, and Curtis just forced it on. When I gasped that it was sore, he glared at me as if to say, "Shut up, you'll embarrass me." And my cheeks burned when I remembered all the times he had asked me to watch my weight before the wedding. But I've not put on too much weight, 3 kilos at the most. Honestly, I just think he made the ring too small, maybe so that I wouldn't be able to take it off. So I just gulped the pain down and kept quiet, and tried to forget about it. I didn't want to spoil the special day by starting a fight. But then things got worse. I was so excited about our wedding night and taking out the yacht for the first time. It was like my dream of sailing into the sunset with Curtis was coming true. Curtis had put so much thought and effort into the trip. He packed a huge picnic basket full of food, and he put a bottle of MCC Brut on ice. He laid out a big white tablecloth on the floor with pillows, and we sat down together. Yellow plums and strawberries and salmon, all kinds of beautiful cheeses and salted crackers. My favourite Swiss chocolate. After my second glass of bubbly, I began to relax and really enjoy it. Before, I was too nervous. I thought maybe we'd go to bed because Curtis is proper like that. But then he took my glass out of my hand and started kissing me. And the next thing, we were making love on the makeshift picnic blanket, which sounds super romantic, but the floor was actually hard and uncomfortable. I pretended to enjoy it, though, because a wedding night is not something you forget, and it was over quickly anyway. Afterwards, I thought he'd lie with me while we held hands and talked about the future. But instead, he checked the tablecloth underneath me and asked where the blood was. "The blood?" I asked. I was confused. Then it hit me. Curtis thought I was a virgin. I explained that I wasn't, and he called me a liar and slapped me so hard that I blacked out. When I came to, he was shouting at me, saying that I was a slut and a liar. I crept up into the corner and tried to make myself as small as possible, wiping the blood from my nose and waiting for him to calm down. I've never seen someone so angry or out of control in my life. I just kept thinking, what have I done? What have I done? Until eventually he went to bed, and I passed out on the hard floor. Curtis. Monica betrayed me, but I think we can still make it work. We're married now, after all, and I'm willing to give her another chance. Till death do us part, right? Monica. Today, I tried to attend my first class of the year, but the security guard wouldn't let me in. He took away my student card. I was sure it was a mistake, and I phoned the faculty. It appears that Curtis has withdrawn my tuition funding. In fact, he hadn't made any payment whatsoever, so my enrollment fell through, and now there are no more places left. Curtis. Monica's a little upset about my decision about her studies. I'm not sure why. I thought it would be clear to her, when I asked her to marry me, that she would no longer need to attend university. I have enough money for both of us. While I toil away, she never has to do anything. She doesn't know how lucky she is. Anyway, I'm sure she'll come round. She always does. Monica. When people hear about abusive relationships, they say, why didn't she leave? I'll tell you why. The last time I tried to leave Curtis, he found me and broke my left collarbone, and I couldn't drive for weeks. That was my 6th visit to casualty in as many months, and the nursing staff have started to ask me questions. I just tell them I'm clumsy. If I told them the truth, they'd think that I was stupid for staying, but they don't know what Curtis is capable of. They don't know that if I try to leave him again, he'll kill me. So the nurses just squeeze my hand in sympathy and surreptitiously pass me extra painkillers, the really strong post-operative ones, and tell me they guess they'll be seeing me again soon. I have a little pile of the pills now, and I close my eyes and think of them when Curtis is climbing into me. I keep the hospital bands, the pills, and a secret wallet of pilfered cash which I add to as often as I can. I may not be able to leave, but I can dream about it. The hope keeps me alive. Despite this, I feel myself slipping into depression. Curtis doesn't like it when I leave the house, so I can't exercise or see my friends. They probably just think I'm so happy that I don't have time for them anymore. And when I do feel brave enough to quickly nip outside, I feel ashamed of the bruises that splatter my skin, and I decide to rather stay in. It's safer, I tell myself. It's safer, even though the opposite is true. I've started boxing lessons. I watch YouTube tutorials while Curtis is at work and listen to 80s music while I practice and practice, sometimes for hours at a time, punching thin air or a pillow wrapped up in a blanket. I know how to make a proper fist now, and how to bob and weave. It makes me feel stronger, even though, when faced with Curtis's temper, my mind goes blank and I never actually dare to fight back. I think fighting back would be a one-way ticket. I keep practicing anyway. Curtis. Monica is really being so troublesome. Sometimes I wonder if this whole thing has been a mistake. Why can't she just be a good wife? Is it really so difficult? I do so much for her, and she just lies around the house. I asked her the other day what happened to her. She's supposed to be a housewife, but she doesn't even know how to clean up. Never mind the housework, she doesn't even shower anymore. Her hair is a greasy mess. She doesn't even look at me when I talk to her. She's disgusting. A total disgrace. I still make love to her, but it's just not the same. Monica. Living with Curtis is like living with a drunk, raging bear. All day, I try to disappear. I try to fade into walls. I flinch when he comes near me, flinch when he talks. But nowadays, even flinching can get me hurt. I try to keep myself as unattractive as possible, but he rapes me anyway. Now he just tells me how dirty and ugly I am while he's doing it. Curtis. The funniest thing happened. When I got home from work today, Monica had showered and put makeup on, and she was even wearing a clean dress. She's thankfully lost a bit of weight in the last few months, so she was looking really good. The house was clean, the laundry ironed, and wait for it, there was even a home-cooked meal on the table. And candles. I couldn't believe it. What has caused this seismic shift? Has she finally come to her senses? I was so impressed that I couldn't help but hug her. She flinched, and I felt the first sparks of anger, but I took a deep breath of her freshly shampooed hair and forgave her. Love is generous. Love is kind. God has brought my beautiful wife back to me. While we were eating, she put down her knife and fork and looked me in the eyes. They're still beautiful eyes, despite the scars she insists on wearing. She said she wanted us to start again. She explained that she knows more about me and our relationship now, and will know how to behave in the right way. Well, what can I say? I am beyond thrilled. I said yes, of course. And then she asked if we can have a second honeymoon, a night on the yacht, to celebrate. She said she's even been brushing up on her sailing lessons. I was floored. I think it's a terrific idea. It will be symbolic of our second chance. I was in a generous, jovial mood, so I opened a second bottle of wine. I'm already scheming about what to put in the picnic basket this time around. Monica. We sailed out at dusk. I was wearing a new dress, one I knew Curtis would like. Not too revealing, but showing off my figure really nicely in a beautiful deep blue, hinting at the night that was to come. I haven't seen Curtis that happy for a long time. He kept saying how brilliant my idea was, how clever I was, how pretty, how magnificent. I nodded and gave him my brightest smile. Yes, I said, a new beginning. And that's what we toasted to on the bow deck as the ocean rippled around us, salt scenting the air. As Curtis drained his second glass, he pulled his lips a little to the side and frowned into the champagne flute. His brain was still trying to make sense of the bitter aftertaste of the champagne when I smashed my fist into his nose as hard as I could. He dropped the glass and it shattered on the deck, and his hands went flying up to his face. His lip was split, his nose gushed with blood. As his shock turned into rage, he lost his balance. The drugs were making him sleepy, dizzy. He lunged for me, but I easily sidestepped him, and then, using his momentum, I pushed him over the side of the boat and heard his body hit the water with a splash. I watched him flail around in the black water, shouting for help, and when the shouting faded and his head finally tipped under the surface, I waited to make sure he wouldn't climb up and back inside. Then I got the brush and pan, and I cleaned up the broken flute and threw it overboard, the glass shards like diamonds on velvet. I wiped up the blood with a solution of bleach and threw that into the sea too, and imagined it sinking all the way down to join my husband on the dark ocean floor. It seems I can clean up well after all. The end.